All right, today is not Friday, September 7th, like this thing says. It is Monday, September 10th. There it is. So change that. What is the definition of absolute value? It's the distance from zero on a number line.
Isn't comp like
Solve each. So if I said what's the absolute value of x equals 4 and you're looking at a number line, count for the distance from zero on number line. So I could go this way. So one of my answers could be 4. And the other one is I could go 4 the other way. So the other one is negative 4. So it's negative 4 or 4. So the absolute value is, pretty much everything comes out positive. So if I said what's the absolute value of negative 4? It is 4. What's the absolute value of 4? 4. There's two answers. So whenever you see absolute values, you're going to think two answers. So I always have people just write like this, negative, positive. Make sure the negative is the left side and the positive is the other one. And you would write x equals negative 4 or x equals 4. Okay? These are two numbers, negative 4 and 4, are two numbers that are 4 away from the 0. So there's two answers. But what if it was equal to 0? If the definition is distance from 0 on a number line, and it says 0, then there's just one answer. There's one answer. So you set x equal to 0, because you can't say x equals negative 0. So it's just x equals 0, one answer. And can you have a negative distance? Distance can never be negative. So if you ever have an absolute value equal to a negative number, you have no solution. So what are the choices for the possible number of answers of an absolute value? So if you have absolute value bars and you have an x and it's equal to a positive number, there are two solutions. If you have an absolute value equal to 0, there is one solution. And if you have an absolute value equal to a negative number, there are no solutions, or you can say 0 solutions. So for this first one, it's very important that you know that before you can start solving, you have to isolate the absolute values. So you have this absolute value of x minus 2 equals 3. So when is the distance of this 3 units from 0? What you do is, can you do anything to isolate that? So just cover this up. There's nothing outside of the absolute value bars. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up two equations. Step 1, set up two equations. So the x minus 2 is called the value under it's the part that's the absolute value. So you're going to take x minus 2 in both of your equations. The x minus 2 is either going to equal the negative 3 or it's going to equal the positive 3. I always write the negative on the left, the positive on the right. And then you just solve these separately because there's an or here. So you're going to add 2 and x equals negative 1. And you're going to add 2 and x equals 5. So if you plugged in a negative 1 up here, negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So this negative 1 makes this negative 3. 5 should make it 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 equals 3. So you have two answers that make this true. So absolute values will always have two solutions if it's equal to a positive number. So in this one, right now, it's currently equal to a negative number, but it has not been isolated. So what we're going to do is subtract 4 to both sides. What we're doing right now is isolating the absolute value sign. I call it the absolute value bars. Isolate them. So we're adding or subtracting 4. So this becomes absolute value of x plus 1 equals a negative. Once the bars are isolated, then you look up here. It's equal to a negative number. If you have absolute value bars equal to a negative number, you have 0 solutions. So there's no work to be done, and that's your answer. In number 7, these bars, it's very messy over here. Okay, we have this equals 1 over here right now. And then we have this left-hand side. The bars are not isolated. So it's kind of like jail. So you have x minus 1 in jail. These are the visitors. So what we're going to do is get rid of the visitors. So we're going to add 5 first to the other side. Do not treat absolute value bars like parentheses. Think of it as jail. You cannot get into the cell bars. They are locked. So if you're a visitor, you can visit from the outside, but you cannot go in the jail. So the next thing we're going to do is divide by 2. And this equals 3. So once your bars are isolated, so there's nothing on the outside, then that is when you want to see is equal to a positive. So there's 2 solutions. We're going to figure out our 2 solutions. When is x minus 1 equal to, when is the absolute value of x minus 1 equal to 3? Well, you have the negative side and you have the positive side. So the negative side, you take the x minus 1, the part under the bars, get rid of the bars, set it equal to negative 3. And then you take the x minus 1, the part in the bars, and set it equal to the positive 3. Add 1, and x equals negative 2. Add 1, and x equals 4. Let's see if that makes sense. Negative 2. So negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 5 is 1. 4. Plug in the 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 5 is 1. All right, those are your answers. And the next one. Are the bars isolated? The answer to that is no. Okay, when I say isolated, are the bars by themselves? No, they have this plus 4 here. So the first thing you have to do is subtract 4. It's equal to 0. So you have absolute value bars equal to 0. Let's go up here. What happens if your absolute value bars are equal to 0? It means there's one solution. So you do not have to do this little separate thing like we've been doing. You just know that x plus 3 is equal to 0 because you can't make it a negative 0. So get rid of your bars and start solving. You have one and only one answer. One and only one answer. So in this problem, are the bars isolated? So I want you to add 4 to both sides. Like that. Are the bars isolated? No. Divide by 3. Absolute value y equals 7. How many answers do you have? If the absolute value bars are equal to a positive number, it means you have 2 solutions. So this is when you get rid of the bars. You set this y equal to negative 7, and then you set it equal to the positive 7. So your answers are negative 7 or 7. So this one, are the bars isolated? The answer to that is yes. So we're going to, but it's equal to a negative number. See how it's equal to a negative number? So there's no solution. No work needed. Don't even worry about this one, and we're done.